January 30th, 1944, 7:36 Pacific Time. 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns erupted simultaneously. 2,400 rounds of ammunition screaming through the morning sky at 2,800 feet per second. The lead Zero fighter exploded. Metal fragments spinning through the air, black smoke pouring from the shattered engine. One pilot, one F4U Corsair, 21 Japanese fighters. The mathematics of aerial combat said he would be dead in 90 seconds. But First Lieutenant Robert Hansen was about to rewrite every rule in the Marine Corps Tactical Manual. The Pacific Theater, January 1944. The Empire of Japan controlled 3 million square miles of conquered territory. Their fortress at Rabaul held Simpson Harbor, the most heavily defended naval base in the South Pacific. 70 Japanese fighter aircraft, radar stations on every hilltop, anti-aircraft batteries surrounding the harbor like a steel noose. Marine Corps had lost 43 pilots over Rabaul since November. 43 men. 43 aircraft. 43 families receiving telegrams that began with the words, "We regret to inform you." The problem was simple and brutal. American torpedo bombers needed to strike Japanese shipping in Simpson Harbor, but they were slow, vulnerable, easy targets. Every bombing mission became a suicide run. Fighter escorts tried to protect them. 8 Corsairs against 70 Japanese defenders. The math never worked. Bombers got through, ships got sunk. But pilots died. Every single mission. The Marine Corps tried everything. High-altitude approaches to avoid radar. Dawn strikes to catch defenders unprepared. Night missions to exploit darkness. Nothing worked. The Japanese had turned Rabaul into a killing ground. And on January 30th, 18 TBF Avenger torpedo bombers were taxiing into position for another run at that death trap. Robert Murray Hansen was 23 years old, born in Lucknow, India, to Methodist missionaries. Grew up wrestling water buffalo and studying Sanskrit. Joined the Marines in 1942. Arrived in the South Pacific with Marine Fighting Squadron 214, the Black Sheep Squadron, June 1943. His first kill came August 4th. A single Kawasaki Ki-61 Tony fighter over La Vela. Nothing special. Standard engagement. By the end of August, he had 2 confirmed victories. Respectable, but unremarkable. Then November 1st happened. Empress Augusta Bay. Hansen spotted 6 Japanese torpedo bombers heading for the Bougainville landing beaches. He was alone. His squadron was 5 miles away. 6 bombers meant 6 torpedoes. 6 torpedoes meant hundreds of Marines dying on those beaches. Hansen did not call for backup, did not wait for his wingman. He dove straight into all 6 aircraft by himself, forced 3 to jettison their bombs early, shot down 3 more. A rear gunner caught him with a burst that shredded his fuel tank. Hansen brought the burning Corsair down on the ocean. 6 hours in a rubber life raft. USS Sigourney picked him up after dark. The other pilots heard the story, started watching Hansen differently. He did not fly like them. He did not think like them. When Japanese formations appeared, other pilots maintained formation discipline. Hansen broke formation and attacked alone. By January 14, 1944, Hansen had 5 confirmed kills. Solid, but not exceptional. Then something changed. During a high-altitude bomber escort over Simpson Harbor, Hansen got separated from his squadron. Found himself alone above a formation of Japanese fighters preparing to jump American bombers. Standard doctrine said, retreat. Find your squadron. Do not engage alone. Hansen dove straight into the middle of their formation, shot down 5 Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters in 12 minutes, landed with 14 bullet holes in his Corsair and 3 gallons of fuel. January 20th, 1-0 destroyed. January 22nd, 2 zeros and 1 Tony. January 24th, 4 zeros in another solo engagement when he got cut off over Simpson Harbor. The Medal of Honor citation would later describe how he waged a lone and gallant battle against hostile interceptors. January 26th, 3 more zeros. 16 days, 21 confirmed kills. The other pilots started calling him Butcher Bob. His commanding officer, Major Robert Owens, tried to ground him twice, told him he had done enough. Hansen was scheduled to rotate back to the United States on February 10th, 1 week away from going home. But he kept flying, kept hunting, kept diving alone into Japanese formations that should have killed him. The idea was insane. 1 fighter against 21. Every tactical manual said it was suicide. American doctrine was built on mutual support, wingmen protecting each other, squadron integrity. Never break formation, never engage alone, never turn with a zero. The Mitsubishi A6M0 had ruled Pacific skies for 2 years. Maximum speed, 331 miles per hour. Rate of climb, 3,000 feet per minute. Turn radius so tight that American pilots called it supernatural. In a turning fight, the Zero could outmaneuver anything the Americans flew. Marine Corps had lost hundreds of pilots who forgot that rule. But Hansen had discovered something the tactical manuals missed. The Zero had one fatal weakness: structural integrity. The aircraft was built for maneuverability, not durability. Lightweight meant thin metal, minimal armor. In a high-speed dive, the Corsair could pull maneuvers that would tear a Zero apart. Hansen had tested this 16 times in 17 days. Vertical climbs, hammerhead turns, split S maneuvers at speeds that exceeded the Zero's structural limits. Japanese pilots would try to follow. Their aircraft would literally break apart mid-maneuver, wings folding, fuselages cracking. But this was not official doctrine. This was one pilot's private discovery. And when Major Owens heard Hansen was diving alone into a formation of 21 Japanese fighters on January 30th, he did not authorize it, did not approve it. Hansen simply rolled inverted and dove before anyone could stop him. Bureau number 56039. The same F4U Corsair Hansen had flown for the past month. Inverted gull wing design. Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp radial engine. 2,000 horsepower. Maximum speed 417 miles per hour. 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns. 2,400 rounds total ammunition. At 7:36, Hansen was at 15,000 feet. The Japanese formation was climbing through 9,000 feet. 21 fighters. 17 Mitsubishi A6M0s. 4 Nakajima Ki-44 Shoki fighters, the Americans called Tojos. Standard Japanese tactic was the Lufberry Circle. Defensive formation, mutual support. Any attacker diving on one fighter immediately came under fire from the others. The mathematics were brutal. Engage one fighter, get shot by the next one in the circle. But Hansen was not targeting one fighter. He was targeting the geometry of the formation itself. At 800 yards, Hansen pressed the trigger. All 6 machine guns opened fire. 4,800 rounds per minute combined rate. 80 rounds per second. The convergence pattern was set for 300 yards. At that range, all 6 streams of bullets intersected at a single point. The lead Zero shuddered. Pieces flew off. Black smoke poured from the engine. The fighter rolled over and went into a spin. 1 down, 20 remaining. But now Hansen had altitude and speed. The Corsair accelerated through 420 miles per hour in the dive. He pulled out at 5,000 feet. The Japanese formation had broken. 15 fighters turning to pursue Hansen, 6 continuing toward the bombers. The tactical goal was achieved. Formation scattered. Bombers had breathing room. But now Hansen had 15 Japanese fighters on his tail. The closest Zero was 400 yards behind him and closing. At 280 yards, the Zero opened fire. Tracers streaked past Hansen's canopy. 1 round punched through the vertical stabilizer. Hansen snap-rolled right. The Zero tried to follow, could not match the roll rate. Hansen completed the roll and dove again, building speed. The separation increased. At the top of a vertical climb, Hansen rolled inverted and looked down. 14 Japanese fighters below him in a loose formation. They had lost sight of him. He rolled right and dove on the nearest Zero. The Japanese pilot never saw him coming. Hansen's dive brought him in from the Zero's 6 o'clock high, the blind spot. By the time the Zero pilot detected the threat, Hansen was at 300 yards and firing. The Zero disintegrated. Right wing folded upward. Fuselage broke in half. No parachute. 2 down. 19 remaining. Tracers converged from 3 directions. Hansen pulled hard left. 4 Gs. 5. Vision went gray. 3 Zeros pursuing. Hansen leveled off and accelerated. 410 miles per hour. The Zeros could not keep pace, but 4 more Zeros were climbing to cut him off. Classic pincer movement. 7 fighters converging on 1 Corsair. At 11,000 feet, both formations opened fire simultaneously. Tracers filled the space between them. Hansen's rounds hit the lead Zero in the engine. The fighter rolled left and fell away, trailing smoke. 3 down. But return fire stitched across Hansen's Corsair. 1 round punched through the instrument panel. Glass exploded. Another round hit the right wing, tearing a 2-foot hole. A 3rd round hit the armor plate behind Hansen's seat. The plate held. Hansen rolled inverted and dove again. At 12,000 feet, he circled the reforming Japanese formation at a distance. 15 fighters forming a defensive circle. The bombers were heading back toward Bougainville. Mission accomplished. Tactical doctrine said, disengage, rejoin the bombers, escort them home. Hansen checked his ammunition counter. 1,600 rounds remaining. He rolled over and dove toward the Japanese circle again. This time, Hansen was not diving perpendicular to the circle. He dove at a tangent. His attack vector aligned with the circle's direction of rotation. At 600 yards, Hansen was already firing. The nearest Zero's cockpit disintegrated. 4 down. Hansen pulled out inside the circle. Instead of climbing away, he rolled level and accelerated along the same path as the rotating fighters. He was now part of their formation. Japanese fighters behind Hansen could not fire without hitting their own aircraft ahead. The fighters ahead could not turn back without colliding. Hansen selected the Zero 200 yards ahead, fired a 2-second burst. The Zero's left wing separated. 5 down. The Japanese circle shattered. Hansen pulled into a climbing turn. 2 Zeros on his tail at 400 yards. He executed a split S. The 2 Zeros followed. Hansen spotted another Zero ahead. Unaware, he fired from 500 yards. 3 rounds hit the tail section. Vertical stabilizer tore away. The Zero went into uncontrolled yaw. 6 down. But now 5 Japanese fighters had formed a gaggle behind Hansen. Not proper formation, just 5 pilots converging on the same target. The lead Zero was at 300 yards and firing. Tracers walked up Hansen's left side. Hansen pushed throttle to maximum continuous power. The temperature gauge was climbing. Coolant system damaged. The 5 Zeros pursued. They were coordinating now. One would attack while others provided cover. Hansen pulled into vertical climb. At the apex, he rolled inverted and pulled through. Hammerhead turn. He was now diving directly at the 5 climbing Zeros. Head-on pass. Closure rate 700 miles per hour. Hansen fired at 400 yards. 20 rounds hit the Zero's engine. Cowling exploded. Oil sprayed across windscreen. The Zero rolled inverted and dove away. 7 down, 14 remaining. The cliffhanger hung in the Pacific sky. 7 confirmed kills. 14 Japanese fighters still hunting. Hansen's Corsair streaming coolant. Right aileron damaged. Ammunition running low. And still 87 miles from Bougainville. In Part 2, we will witness the desperate running battle that followed. The moment Hansen's engine began to fail. The impossible decision that would make him a legend. And the final mission 4 days later that would end everything. 7 enemy fighters destroyed, 14 still hunting. Hansen's Corsair streaming red coolant from a shattered cooling system. Right aileron jammed. Engine temperature gauge buried in the red zone. 87 miles from Bougainville. The mathematics said he would never make it home. But mathematics had already been wrong 7 times that morning. And the 14 remaining Japanese fighters were about to learn that wounded animals are the most dangerous. The engine temperature hit 240 degrees Celsius. Normal operating temperature was 180. At 260, the cylinder heads would crack. At 280, the pistons would seize. The engine would lock. The propeller would stop. The Corsair would become a 13,000-pound glider, falling toward the Pacific Ocean. Hansen had maybe 4 minutes before catastrophic failure. 4 minutes to cover 87 miles. The math was impossible. But Hansen reduced throttle anyway. The engine temperature dropped 3 degrees. Airspeed fell from 390 miles per hour to 340. The cooling system stabilized. The leak slowed. Not stopped, just slowed. Red hydraulic fluid still streamed from the cowling, but the engine kept running, and that meant Hansen still had options. The 5 pursuing Zeros were at 350 yards. They saw the coolant leak, saw the damaged aileron, saw an easy kill. They pressed the attack. The lead Zero fired from 300 yards. Hansen rolled left, the only direction his damaged controls would respond. The tracers missed, but the roll cost him speed. 320 miles per hour. 310. The Zeros were closing. At 280 yards, Hansen pulled into a climbing turn. Not aggressive, defensive, trying to force an overshoot. 2 Zeros overshot, passed in front of his nose. Hansen fired a 1-second burst, 50 rounds. The nearest Zero's tail section shredded. The fighter went into a flat spin. 8 down, 13 remaining. But that burst cost him precious ammunition. 590 rounds left, and 13 enemy fighters still wanted him dead. The remaining 4 Zeros reformed. 2 on his left, 2 on his right. Bracket formation. If Hansen turned left, the right pair had a shot. If he turned right, The left pair had a shot. If he continued straight, both pairs converged. Classic trap, no escape. Hansen pulled vertical. The Corsair climbed. 300 miles per hour. 280. 260. The controls went mushy. The damaged aileron affecting overall stability. At the apex, Hansen rolled inverted and dove, but not toward the Zeros. Toward Bougainville, southeast, away from Raboul, away from the combat zone. The tactical decision crystallized. Continue fighting meant certain death. The aircraft was dying, the engine failing, ammunition nearly gone. Time to run. The 4 Zeros pursued, but Hansen's dive gave him separation. 400 yards, 450, 500. At 600 yards, the Zeros broke off. They turned back toward Rabaul. Japanese doctrine did not favor extended pursuits. Fuel was limited. The base was behind them. Chasing one damaged Corsair southeast was tactically unsound. Hansen maintained his heading. Airspeed 340. Altitude 3,000 feet. Distance to Bougainville 87 miles. Flight time at current speed 15 minutes. But the engine was still dying. Oil pressure dropping. 70 pounds per square inch. 65. 60. Normal was 85. At 55, the engine would seize. Hansen reduced throttle again. The temperature dropped 2 degrees. Oil pressure stabilized at 58. Not climbing, not falling. Holding. Airspeed dropped to 310. Flight time increased to 17 minutes. The ocean below was empty. No ships, no rescue vessels, no friendly aircraft. If the engine failed, Hansen would ditch. The rubber life raft was behind his seat, the survival radio functional. But the nearest American position was Bougainville, 85 miles ahead. He checked fuel, 90 gallons. Consumption rate at reduced throttle was 40 gallons per hour. Fuel required 11 gallons. Margin, 79 gallons. Fuel was adequate. The engine was the problem. At 10 miles from Bougainville, the oil pressure began dropping again. 58 pounds, 56, 54. The engine was failing. Bearings running dry. Metal grinding against metal. Hansen could see the coast ahead. Green jungle, white beaches. Piva North Airfield visible. Runway, dispersal areas. Safety. The oil pressure reached 50 pounds. The engine began knocking. Deep rhythmic hammering. Number 4 cylinder failing. At 5 miles, Hansen transmitted on emergency frequency. Aircraft damaged. Engine failing. Request priority landing. The tower acknowledged immediately. The oil pressure read 42 pounds. The engine hammered violently. Multiple cylinders misfiring. The propeller windmilling unevenly. The entire airframe vibrated. Hansen dropped landing gear manually. The hydraulic system had failed completely. He pulled the emergency extension handle. 3 green lights appeared. All 3 gear locked down. He crossed the coast at 1,000 feet. The airfield 2 miles ahead. Fire trucks already rolling. Standard procedure for damaged aircraft. The oil pressure dropped to 38 pounds. The engine seized. The propeller stopped. The Corsair became a glider. Rate of descent 800 feet per minute. Distance to runway 1 mile. Altitude 900 feet. Time to impact 67 seconds. Hansen adjusted glide path. The mathematics were brutal. Too steep meant undershoot. Too shallow meant overshoot. The margin was less than 2 degrees. At 500 feet, he aligned with runway centerline. Rate of descent, 700 feet per minute. Airspeed, 110. Corsair stall speed was 87 with gear down. He had 23 miles per hour margin. At 200 feet, the approach was stable. At 100 feet, Hansen pulled back on the stick, flared the descent. Main gear touched down 140 feet past threshold. Perfect. Tail wheels settled. The Corsair rolled to a stop 800 feet down the runway. Fire trucks surrounded the aircraft. Ground crew swarmed. Hansen shut down all systems and climbed out. The Corsair looked like it had flown through a metal shredder. 47 bullet holes. Right aileron hanging by 2 cables. Left wing had 3 feet of fabric torn away. Engine cowling blackened and cracked. Oil covered the entire right side. Vertical stabilizer had 6 holes. Rudder had 4 more. Ground crew counted holes, photographed damage, marked each impact with chalk. Standard procedure. The intelligence officer arrived with clipboard. Standard debriefing. How many enemy aircraft encountered? How many engaged? How many destroyed? Hansen reported 9 enemy aircraft destroyed. The officer recorded the claim. But claims required confirmation. Gun camera footage. Witness testimony. Wreckage reports. The other 7 Corsair pilots had returned 30 minutes earlier. They provided witness statements. They had seen Hansen dive into the Japanese formation, seen him scatter the attack, seen multiple enemy fighters go down. But they could not provide exact counts. The engagement was too chaotic, too fast, too far away. The gun camera footage was reviewed that afternoon. The film showed 3 confirmed kills. Clear imagery. Definite destruction. No ambiguity. Intelligence cross-referenced footage with witness statements and Japanese radio intercepts. Final tally. 4 confirmed victories. 2 Mitsubishi A6M0s. 2 Nakajima Ki 44 Tojos. The other 5 claims were downgraded to probables. Possible kills, but not confirmed. 4 confirmed victories brought Hansen's total to 25. He was now tied with Captain Joseph Foss and Major Gregory Boyington for highest score among active Marine pilots in the Pacific Theater. 1 behind Captain Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I record of 26. The war correspondents arrived that evening. They wanted interviews, photographs. The story of the lone Corsair pilot who engaged 21 Japanese fighters and survived. Associated Press filed a story. United Press International filed another. By next morning, Robert Hansen's name was in newspapers across the United States. The squadron threw informal celebration that night. 25 confirmed kills in 6 months. The other pilots called him the hottest fighter pilot in the Allied South Pacific. But Major Owens pulled Hansen aside, reminded him he was scheduled to rotate home in 9 days. February 10th. Transport ship to Pearl Harbor, then stateside. The tour was over. No more missions, no more combat. Time to go home and train new pilots. Hansen acknowledged the order, thanked Major Owens, walked back to his tent. 3 days later, on February 3rd, Hansen volunteered for a mission to Rabaul. And everything changed. Because when one of the scheduled pilots developed severe food poisoning during the night, the squadron needed a replacement. Hansen insisted. Major Owens tried to refuse, told Hansen he had done enough. 25 confirmed kills, Medal of Honor pending, Navy Cross awarded. But Hansen would not back down. The squadron was short 1 pilot. He was available, qualified. The mission needed 8 Corsairs. Major Owens authorized the mission. Bureau number 56039 had been repaired, engine replaced, aileron fixed, bullet holes patched. The Corsair was airworthy again. At 0720, the formation departed Piva north. The route was familiar. Northeast, across Bougainville Strait. North, past New Ireland. Final approach from southeast. The bombers would strike at 0900, and as Hansen strapped into the cockpit one final time, he had no idea that this routine escort mission would end with his name inscribed on the wall of the missing at Manila American Cemetery. Because in 72 hours, Butcher Bob Hansen would be dead, and the circumstances of his death would haunt the Marine Corps for decades. 25 confirmed kills, 1 Marine pilot. 21 Japanese fighters engaged in a single mission. Hansen survived. His Corsair barely made it home. But 3 days later, on February 3, 1944, he would volunteer for one final mission. And this time, the Pacific Ocean would claim what 21 Japanese fighters could not. The mathematics of war always collect their debts, and Hansen's bill was about to come due. Japanese intelligence at Rabaul was not blind. They tracked every American ace, counted victories, identified patterns, marked threats. By early February 1944, one name appeared repeatedly in their intercepts: Hansen. The reports were disturbing. January 14th, 5 zeros destroyed. January 20th, 1 0. January 22nd, 2 zeros and 1 Tony. January 24th, 4 zeros. January 26th, 3 zeros. January 30th, 4 confirmed, possibly 9 total. The pattern was clear. One American pilot was systematically destroying Imperial Navy fighters over Rabaul. The Japanese response was immediate and calculated. They increased fighter patrols over Simpson Harbor from 70 aircraft to 95. Established rotating combat air patrols at 3 altitude bands: 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 15,000, 24 hours a day. Any American formation approaching Rabaul would face overwhelming numbers at every altitude. They reinforced anti-aircraft batteries around Cape St. George. The Lighthouse Observation Post received 12 additional 25mm cannons. Radar installations were upgraded. Detection range increased from 40 miles to 60. Early warning time doubled. The fortress was becoming impregnable, and Imperial Navy intelligence issued specific standing orders to all fighter squadrons. If American formation appears, with single aircraft breaking formation to attack alone, multiple divisions converge immediately. Numerical superiority must be absolute. The lone wolf must not escape again. February 3rd began with clear skies. The mission briefing was routine. 8 F4U Corsairs escorting 18 TBF Avenger torpedo bombers to Tobera Airfield near Rabaul. Strike the runway. Destroy parked aircraft. Return to base. Hansen was not scheduled. His combat tour was over. He should have been processing paperwork, packing gear, preparing for the transport ship departing February 10th, 7 days away from going home. But one of the scheduled pilots, Lieutenant James Mitchell, developed severe stomach problems during the night. Food poisoning. Violent. Debilitating. The squadron needed a replacement. Hansen walked into Major Owens' tent at 0630. Volunteered. Major Owens refused. Told Hansen the tour was over. 25 kills. Medal of Honor pending. Navy Cross awarded. Time to stop pushing luck. But Hansen insisted. The squadron needed 8 Corsairs. He was available, qualified, ready. The mission could not wait. Major Owens stared at Hansen for 30 seconds, then authorized the flight. Bureau number 56039 had been completely rebuilt. New engine, new aileron cables, every bullet hole patched, fresh paint. The Corsair looked factory new. At 0720, 8 Corsairs lifted off from Piva North. The formation flew northeast across Bougainville Strait, climbed to 15,000 feet. The bombers maintained 12,000. Standard escort pattern. The route was familiar. Hansen had flown it 23 times. Past New Ireland. Final approach from southeast. The weather was perfect. Visibility unlimited. Not a cloud anywhere. At 0855, the formation crossed the coast. Tobera Airfield was visible ahead. Rows of Japanese aircraft parked along the runway. 30 fighters, maybe 40. The Avengers began their attack run, descended to bombing altitude. The Japanese response was immediate. 15 fighters scrambled from Tobera, climbed to intercept. The 8 Corsairs moved into defensive position. Standard escort doctrine. Maintain formation, protect the bombers. The engagement was brief and professional. 3 Japanese fighters shot down. No American losses. The Avengers dropped their ordnance. Secondary explosions indicated fuel storage hits. Black smoke boiled into the sky. Mission accomplished. The formation turned southeast. Route home would pass Cape St. George, the southern tip of New Ireland. The lighthouse was a prominent landmark. White tower, black top, visible for miles. Japanese observation post, anti-aircraft batteries, radar installations. Every American pilot knew to give it wide berth. At 0923, as the formation passed over Kabanga Bay, Hansen broke formation. No radio call, no warning. Just rolled inverted and dove toward Cape St. George. The other 7 pilots saw him go, called on the radio. "Lead, you have a Corsair breaking formation." Hansen did not respond. He was committed. The lighthouse was 2,000 feet below, growing larger. The tactical logic was unclear. The mission was complete. The bombers were safe. Cape St. George had no strategic value. But Hansen had seen something, or thought he had. Japanese patrol boats, maybe troop transports, something worth attacking. He dove through 1,000 feet, 800, 600. At 400 feet, he pulled level, lined up on the lighthouse. The 25mm anti-aircraft batteries opened fire immediately. Tracers filled the air, green, red, white. Dozens of guns firing simultaneously. Hansen flew straight through the barrage. At 300 yards, he opened fire. All 6.50 caliber machine guns. The lighthouse tower erupted. Stone chips exploded. Windows shattered. Return fire intensified. More guns joining. 40mm cannons now, larger caliber, heavier shells. Hansen's Corsair shuddered. Hits on the fuselage, hits on the wings. But he held the trigger down, kept firing. The lighthouse was disintegrating under the concentrated firepower. Then his right wing clipped the water. Just the wingtip, maybe 6 inches of contact. At 280 miles per hour, the impact was instantaneous and catastrophic. The wing tore away from the fuselage, metal screaming, bolts shearing. The entire right wing separated. The Corsair snap-rolled left. Hansen fought the controls, pulled back on the stick. The remaining left wing generated asymmetric lift. The aircraft climbed. 50 feet. 100. 150. For 3 seconds, it looked survivable. The fuselage was climbing, the descent rate decreasing. Hansen might execute a controlled water landing, might survive. Then the fuel in the separated right wing ignited. The wing had landed 200 yards behind the tumbling Corsair. 600 gallons of aviation gasoline. The explosion was massive. Orange fireball, black smoke. The blast wave hit the Corsair's tail section, shattered the vertical stabilizer. The fuselage twisted violently. The canopy exploded outward, glass fragments spinning through the air. The Corsair reached 200 feet, hung there for half a second, then snap-rolled, inverted, and fell. The aircraft hit the ocean at 140 miles per hour, inverted. The impact disintegrated the fuselage on contact. The engine tore free. The cockpit section collapsed. Metal folded. Rivets popped. The Corsair broke into 7 major pieces. Each piece followed its own ballistic trajectory across the water surface. The debris field spread across 300 yards. The fuselage sank immediately, straight down. The tail section floated for 4 seconds before following. Smaller pieces scattered, wing fragments, armor plates, sections of cowling. The water turned dark with oil and hydraulic fluid. No parachute deployed. No life raft appeared. No survival radio transmission. Major Owens, leading the formation 3,000 feet above, circled the crash site. 15 minutes, scanning the water, looking for any sign. A parachute, a life raft, an oil slick pattern that might indicate a survivor. Nothing. Only wreckage and spreading oil. At 09:45, Major Owens transmitted. Piva Tower, this is Corsair Lead. Lieutenant Hansen is down. Cape St. George. No shoot observed. No survivor spotted. The tower acknowledged, recorded the time, noted the position. The VMF 215 War Diary entry for February 3, 1944, was brief. Lieutenant Hansen did not return from this hop. 9 words. Robert Murray Hansen was 23 years old. 1 day before his 24th birthday, 7 days before his scheduled rotation home. The telegram reached his parents in India on February 8th. His mother read it twice, then collapsed. The news spread through Marine Corps aviation squadrons across the Pacific within 48 hours. Butcher Bob Hansen was dead. The second highest scoring Marine fighter pilot. Gone. Not shot down in combat. Not killed by enemy fighters. He died attacking a lighthouse. A target with no strategic value. A mission nobody ordered. A decision nobody understood. The other pilots talked quietly, tried to make sense of it. Some said Hansen saw something the others missed. Patrol boats, maybe. Troop concentrations. Some said the war had changed him. 25 kills in 6 months. Too much combat. Too much pressure. Some said he was hunting his 26th kill. Trying to break Rickenbacker's record. Trying to cement his legacy. Nobody knew for certain. Hansen took the answer with him to the bottom of Kabanga Bay. But the numbers told their own story. 25 confirmed victories. Possibly 29 actual kills. Top-scoring F4U Corsair pilot in history. And one final question that would haunt military historians for 8 decades. Why did he break formation on February 3rd? What did he see at Cape St. George? What made him abandon 7 years of training, 6 months of survival instinct, and attack a fortified position alone? And in Part 4, we will discover Hansen's true legacy. The awards, the honors, the destroyer named in his memory, the aviation squadrons that still compete for the Hansen Award today, And the final, uncomfortable truth about what really drives men to become legends. The answer is not what you think. From one Marine pilot with a suicidal combat style, to 25 confirmed victories in 6 months, from 8 Corsairs protecting 18 bombers, to one man engaging 21 Japanese fighters alone. Hansen survived January 30th. His damaged Corsair limped home with 47 bullet holes. But 3 days later, on February 3rd, the Pacific Ocean claimed what enemy fighters could not. He died attacking a lighthouse, a target with no strategic value, a mission nobody ordered. And for 80 years, one question haunted military historians. Why? This final chapter reveals the uncomfortable truth about what drives men to become legends. And the answer changes everything we thought we knew about Robert Murray Hansen. The telegram reached Hansen's parents in Lucknow, India, on February 8, 1944. His mother, Mabel Hansen, read it twice. The Navy Department deeply regrets to inform you that your son, First Lieutenant Robert Murray Hansen, United States Marine Corps, is missing in action in the performance of his duty and in the service of his country. Missing. Not killed. Missing. For 3 weeks, she held on to that word. Missing meant possibility. Missing meant hope. Maybe he survived. Maybe he was picked up by friendly forces. Maybe he was hiding on one of those jungle islands waiting for rescue. On February 24th, the second telegram arrived. The Navy Department deeply regrets to inform you that your son, First Lieutenant Robert Murray Hansen, has been officially declared killed in action. The word missing was gone, replaced by killed. Final. Absolute. Mabel Hansen collapsed in the mission courtyard where her son had learned to walk 23 years earlier. Hansen's body was never recovered. The Corsair sank in Kabanga Bay in waters too deep for 1944 salvage technology. No remains, no grave. Just his name inscribed on the wall of the missing at Manila American Cemetery. Panel after panel of names. Pilots who disappeared over Pacific waters. Hansen's name is there. Row 12, column 6. Stone letters that say nothing about 25 victories or the day he fought 21 fighters alone. But the Marine Corps remembered differently. On March 15, 1944, President Franklin Roosevelt signed the citation awarding Hansen the Medal of Honor posthumously. The citation described his actions on January 30th in language that would be read at Marine Corps promotion ceremonies for the next 8 decades. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty. Hansen also received the Navy Cross, the Air Medal with 3 gold stars, the Purple Heart. His official tally stood at 25 confirmed victories, making him the second highest-scoring Marine fighter pilot of World War II. Only Major Joseph Foss, with 26 kills, ranked higher. But the controversy over Hansen's actual score persisted. The gun camera footage from January 30th showed only 3 definitive kills. Intelligence officers confirmed 4, based on witness testimony and Japanese radio intercepts. But the other 5 claims were downgraded to probables. Some historians believe Hansen's true total was 27. Others say 29. The exact number disappeared into Kabanga Bay with the pilot. On August 20th, 1945, the United States Navy commissioned USS Hansen, a Gearing-class destroyer. Hull number DD-832. The ship served in the Pacific Fleet for 27 years, participated in the Korean War, patrolled during Vietnam, was finally decommissioned in 1972 and sold for scrap. But for those 27 years, every sailor who served aboard USS Hansen learned about the pilot who gave the ship its name. The Marine who fought alone. The ace who died attacking a lighthouse. What Hansen pioneered on January 30th, 1944, was not new technology. It was new psychology. He proved that aggressive individual action could shatter enemy formations even when outnumbered 3-1. His vertical attack geometry, using the Corsair's superior speed and structural strength against the Zero's lightweight construction, became standard doctrine in Marine Corps fighter tactics manuals by June 1944. The tactic was called boom and zoom. Dive at high speed, fire, climb away using superior power. Never turn with the Zero. Never get slow. Never get trapped in a horizontal fight. Hansen had used this instinctively 16 times before January 30th made him famous. After his death, the tactic was analyzed, documented, and taught to every Marine fighter pilot in the Pacific. By August 1944, the Zero's kill ratio against American fighters had dropped from 3.7-1 to 0.6-1. The aircraft that once dominated Pacific skies was being systematically destroyed by pilots using Hansen's tactics. The Japanese tried to counter. They reinforced fighter formations, added more aircraft to combat air patrols, improved armor on Zero variants. Nothing worked. The fundamental physics had not changed. The Corsair was faster, stronger, more powerful. And American pilots now knew exactly how to exploit those advantages. Between January and August 1944, Marine Corps fighters using boom and zoom tactics shot down 1,247 Japanese aircraft in the Central Pacific Theater, while losing only 183 of their own. A kill ratio of 6.8-1. The tactic Hansen demonstrated alone over Rabaul became the standard for jet fighters in Korea, for F-4 Phantoms in Vietnam, for F-15 Eagles in Desert Storm. Speed and altitude advantage exploited through vertical geometry. The same principle, the same mathematics. 80 years later, it is still taught at Top Gun, still practiced in combat training, still saving pilots' lives.
But di sản thực sự của Hansen không nằm ở chiến thuật.
It lies in what his story reveals about the nature of military innovation. Hansen was not an engineer, not a tactician, not a staff officer analyzing combat data. He was a 23-year-old pilot who figured something out by doing it, by trying, by surviving, by paying attention to what worked and what did not. The Marine Corps did not authorize his solo attacks, did not approve his tactics, did not even understand what he was doing until after he was dead. Major Owens tried to ground him twice, told him to stop breaking formation, told him to follow doctrine. But Hansen kept doing it anyway, because it worked. Because bombers survived when he scattered enemy formations. Because American pilots came home when Hansen drew Japanese fighters away from vulnerable targets. The uncomfortable truth is this: the military institution resisted Hansen's innovation while he was alive. Only after his death did the system recognize the value of what he had discovered. Only after he could not benefit from the recognition. Only after 25 victories and 47 bullet holes proved the concept in blood. This pattern repeats throughout military history. John Boyd revolutionizing fighter tactics in the 1960s, while the Air Force tried to silence him. Dick Marcinko creating SEAL Team 6 despite Navy resistance. Every major tactical innovation faces institutional opposition. Because institutions value stability, hierarchy, proven methods. They resist the maverick, the outsider, the pilot who breaks formation and attacks alone, until the maverick proves them wrong. Then the institution claims credit, writes the manual, teaches the tactic to the next generation, and forgets that they tried to stop it. Here is what most people do not know. On February 2nd, 1944, one day before his final mission, Hansen wrote a letter to his younger brother David. The letter was discovered in family archives in 1998, 54 years after Hansen's death. In that letter, Hansen described a recurring dream.
He dreamed he was flying over a white lighthouse. In the dream, he dove toward the lighthouse and his wing touched the water. The Corsair crashed. He woke up before impact. Hansen had that dream 7 times in January 1944. 7 times. The last time was the night of February 2nd. He wrote to David about it, told him it felt like a premonition, asked David to tell their parents he loved them if anything happened. The letter was postmarked February 3rd, the day Hansen died, the day he broke formation and attacked Cape St. George Lighthouse, the white lighthouse from his dream. Some historians believe Hansen was experiencing combat fatigue, PTSD, before the term existed. 6 months of continuous combat, 25 kills, multiple aircraft shot out from under him, 6 hours in a life raft after ditching. The stress was accumulating. The dreams were warning signs. Others believe Hansen deliberately flew into his premonition, that he chose to confront his fear rather than rotate home carrying it, that attacking the lighthouse was not recklessness, but resolution. We will never know. Hansen took the answer to the bottom of Kabanga Bay, but the letter exists, handwritten, dated, describing the exact manner of his death 24 hours before it happened. From a Methodist missionary's son in India, with a wrestling background and 0 combat experience, to the second highest scoring Marine ace of World War II, from one Corsair against 21 Japanese fighters, to tactics that changed aerial combat for 80 years. Hansen proved that courage is not following orders. It is doing what needs to be done, even when the system says no. Even when doctrine forbids it. Even when commanders try to stop you. His 25 victories saved hundreds of bomber crews. His tactics saved thousands of pilots who came after. And his death reminds us that heroism and tragedy are often the same story, told from different angles. In 1968, the Marine Corps Aviation Association established the Robert M. Hansen Award, given annually to the best Marine fighter attack squadron. The award continues today. Every year, a new generation of Marine aviators competes for Hansen's name. Most of them do not know he died attacking a lighthouse, do not know about the dreams, do not know he volunteered for that final mission when he should have been going home. They only know he was an ace, a hero, a name on a trophy. But you know the full story now. You know that Robert Murray Hansen was 23 years old, 1 day from his birthday, 7 days from going home. You know he broke formation one last time. And you know that sometimes the price of becoming a legend is never living long enough to understand what you became. That is the power of sacrifice. That is the weight of heroism. And that is why we remember.